And a very happy Memorial Day weekend, Division III fans. And welcome to the QCast. This is season 2, episode 19. Boy, how time flies. And yet another outstanding guest here that I'm excited to talk to. It's a gentleman that I've gotten to know over the course of the last year. Like a lot of these guests, interactions started through Twitter, and have gotten to meet this young man in person. And I am glad to have with me Karl Barkley. That's Karl with a K, in case you really want to be specific. And Karl, you also know him on Twitter as at D3Direct. And he is doing some incredible things on behalf of student athletes out there right now. Karl, this has been a long time coming. I'm really excited to have you on the QCast. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing great, Bob. I feel like, we've been seeing each other a lot in person lately. And so, yeah, it's great to finally be on the QCast after watching it for so long.
Well, I'm thrilled that you found the time to do this. Karl is in San Francisco. I'm in Dallas. We've been together in person in New York and Fort Wayne, Indiana. So we kind of got a lot of the country covered here between all of that. And, one of the things, Karl, that I like to get into before we talk about all the great things you're doing today with D3Direct on Twitter and beyond Twitter, is there's a Division III story I always like to get into. And, before you were a famous social media influencer like you are today, you were good old number 35 on the Swarthmore men's basketball team, a 6'3" guard from Davidson, North Carolina. And Karl, first, I want you to talk me through your Division III story. How does a hooping kid from North Carolina end up playing for Swarthmore? Take me through that first. I know that all of your fans will be thrilled to hear that story.
Yeah. I feel like my basketball story starts when I'm about 13 years old. And, that was the first time I found a competitive AAU team. And before then, I'd just been playing rec ball and, really enjoyed it and wanted to do something a little more serious. And so, yeah, I started getting more serious playing middle school. I actually got cut from the my seventh grade year, didn't make the team. Just for anybody out there,
this is like the Michael Jordan story. The famous Michael Jordan got cut from like his sophomore year or freshman year. Say this is the same thing, Karl.
Exactly. Yeah. If you're going to give me a Jordan comparison this early, I will.
You're both from North Carolina. What else do we need?
The comparisons are, athleticism is on par. Comparisons are pretty endless there, but yeah, I got cut 7th grade. And then ended up making the team 8th grade year, made my way onto the JV team as the last man. We had like a 30-day tryout or something that just went from the start of tryouts all the way up to the eve of the first game. And that night the coach I think they were going to keep 15 or 16. And it was between me and this other guy. And the coach gave me a jersey on that last night. And then the other guy left the locker room. It was, I was exhausted after that tryout, but, I made it, didn't play at all freshman year, just worked my butt off. And I would get in like towards the end of games with 2 minutes, 3 minutes left. And, we were pretty good. And so it was just a matter of kind of cleaning up, but I'd hustle and I tried to make an impact there, and started my sophomore year and was a captain of the JV team, and then kind of had a rerun the next year, made varsity, but barely played, kind of like worked my way into a more, a more prominent role. But throughout this whole time, it wasn't, I've seen, through working on D3Direct, seen a ton of kids who are, for right now, like class of 2024 or 2025, and they're already like, I want to play college basketball, and they have this clear vision. And I did not have that.
Can I ask you this question before we get into kind of how you decided to go to Swarthmore?
Totally.
The things that you're doing now for D3Direct and helping student athletes kind of navigate not only the recruiting process, but maybe even life after school kind of stuff.
Yep.
Is any of that influenced by kind of how hard you had to work to become a player? From what you're describing, is you're the typical guy that didn't have anything handed to you. You had to work really hard just to get on rosters and JV rosters and work your way up. Does any of that shape some of the stuff that you're doing now?
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like, when I got to my junior and senior year, even the process of like figuring out where I could play was a challenge. And I had teammates who were getting these Division I offers, and I'd walk in the locker room, and on the coach's desk, there's a stack of letters for these other kids on the team. And I was not getting that kind of interest. And yeah, I think what inspired a lot of the D3 direct work is exactly what you're saying, is me having to figure all these things out and figure out, where is a camp that someone who cares about their grades and wants that to be a priority in their college experience can go, and that's highlighted and that's appreciated. And those types of schools are there in recruiting. And and then I think after school as well, like seeing all the breadth of opportunities and different experiences that my teammates had, and that I got to experience, just helping kids like see that it's not all about making the most money right out of school, and maybe taking some time to like go play abroad or seek out some opportunities to travel and to know that there are a lot of different ways to get those things paid for.
What was your senior year of high school like? Were you one of the best players on the team, I assume? I mean, when you were a senior, you mentioned you had Division I teammates, but what kind of player were you as a senior in high school?
Yeah, I was definitely not one of the best players on the team. I mean, I was a starter by my senior year, but I mean, yeah, there were a lot of way more talented guys on the squad, and I was probably we were relatively small my senior year, so I was probably a 3 or 4 at times, even though I was 6'2" and 185. But I was
There's a whole bunch of those
there.
still in high school to this day. There's still a bunch of 6'2" post players. I can confirm that.
Yeah, well, I was a post player with no post moves, so I was great at boxing out and just giving a lot of effort and bodying up. I mean, but in our conference, we had guys like Kennedy Meeks, who went on to play at Carolina, and Luke May, who went to play at Carolina.
Tough matchups for you right there. Tough matchups.
Yeah, not ideal. I mean, so you go down the list, and tons of D1 talent that we were having to go up against, and made me a much better player.
Were you recruiting schools, or were schools recruiting you for basketball? How did that play out?
The former. I was anytime I get on and talk about actively recruiting or taking the initiative in the recruiting process, that is, I'm informed by my own experience, which was looking up a list of coaches that I guess thought I had a chance of playing, and finding their emails, and then just firing off kind of slightly adjusted emails for each school. And I remember the Williams coach at the time, I emailed him, and he was like, yeah, I don't think your game's where it needs to be to play for Williams, and getting all these rejections, and which was, it was humbling, but it was also great, because it's like, I think this was during my junior year, I was able to say, all right, I'm not where I need to be, but like, I think I can still get to that level, and I can play Division III basketball. It's just, I'm going to have to find the right school that is that fit.
And Williams at the time, I mean, you graduated from Swarthmore in 2014-15, right? So high school, I mean, Williams was a national power when you were sending them these emails, right? I mean, so it wasn't like they were bad and watching your videos. They were just saying, look, we're a Final Four program here, Karl, and you're not quite our guy right now, right? Absolutely. And the thing is, Bob, I never actually had film. Which is why, I understand the importance for it now. It's a way for kids to get that video in front of a coach and maybe catch their eye. But I was really lucky. I guess maybe my coach would send some to coaches, but I don't really think that happened. I feel like the only time, or the time that my recruitment really got going, was in like
going to all academic basketball or this hoop mountain camp in Boston, things that I just found online.
And you must have had fantastic grades to have ended up at Swarthmore, right? So that was the thing you had going in your corners. You're academically, you must have been off the charts.
Yeah, I think I was top 25 in my class. There were 400 people per class at my high school, and yeah, trying to make that a priority. Basketball was important, but I feel like, yeah, I'd be studying in the locker room if we had late practice and the girls were going early, and I'd be doing homework. And that was just life, and kind of the expectation. I guess my parents always drilled that into us growing up, and that you get your homework done and then take care of the other things you want to do. But yeah, it's again something that I try to emphasize as much as possible, especially to kids that are younger, 25s and 26s right now. Like, you get your grades taken care of, and you are so much more recruitable. You don't have to be the best player. Just take care of it in the classroom, and more $8 and more opportunities will come your way.
Yeah, I mean, just exponentially more opportunities if you have good grades.
Yeah.
So you said that Williams said that Karl was not their guy, but you do end up at Swarthmore, where, and we'll talk about this. I mean, you had a great career at Swarthmore. How did you end up there? What was it? Did you send them a letter that was responded to, or what was the process there?
Yeah, it was a very strange thing. So back to the kind of the active recruiting, and I guess for any recruits out there listening to this, the message of don't give up on a school that you're interested in, maybe because you don't get a response. So I had sent that email in the same batch that I sent out to Williams and a bunch of other schools, and Swarthmore didn't respond, and the coach, it'd been a couple months, and summer's going on. I know I have these camps coming up, and I'm like, I really want to make sure they know I'm going to one of these camps, and send them another follow-up, and they don't respond. And so I go to the camp, and I see one of the Swarthmore assistants there. He's reffing a game or something, and I just walk over and say hey, and introduce myself, and just say, hey, I sent some messages. And they're like, okay, great, yeah, cool. And come home from the camp and send him another response, and I'm like, hey, I think you guys saw me play, and I just wanted to see if there was still any interest. And then finally I get a response back, and the coach is like, hey, sorry, I've been dealing with, poor health of a parent, and haven't way behind on recruiting, but we'd love to have you up. And so this is like 3-4 months after I sent that initial email, and just through being persistent and kind of following up, finally got an invite to come to campus. And so I had 2 visits scheduled up in the Northeast, or I guess PA Maryland area, and one was at Swarthmore, one was at a school that will not be named. And because 2 or 3 nights before I was scheduled to go up, I had a plane flight, I had a hotel booked. The assistant coach who'd been recruiting me emailed me and said they were not recruiting me anymore. And
ouch.
Yeah, it was kind of, again, a humbling experience, just to get that type of rejection when you thought you had some interest or an opportunity. But it all ended up working out. I changed my visit to 2 nights at Swarthmore, and then the rest is history.
Now, at the time, I think that Landry Kosmalski was already at Swarthmore when you came, or was he not there yet?
He was not.
When he came somewhere in your career, wasn't he?
He did.
Did he?
Yeah, he came my sophomore year.
Okay. So you, and that leads to some interesting questions, because you didn't walk in the door of a Swarthmore program that we think of right now. When we think of Swarthmore right now, we think of one of the best programs in the country. They were in the national championship game in 18-19. 19-20, they were number 1 all year when COVID shut the world down, and they've been fantastic. But I believe I looked this up, that you came into a Swarthmore program the year before and won 6 games, I believe,
right.
Somewhere in there, right? So
sounds right.
And then you saw a progression of 6, 7, 8, 11 in your career. But Coach Kosmalski came, you said your sophomore year?
Yeah. Yes, you don't. We had if we had 6 before I got there, that's impressive because my freshman year we were 3-22.
Okay, maybe I had that wrong. So
So a little
you had a
dip.
3, yeah.
Yeah.
So tell me about the coaching change, and obviously what was Coach Kosmalski, what did you see there? Did you see this turning into something big, or what did you see from being so close to that?
Yeah, it was an interesting transition. So Coach Wimberly was there when I got there, and he recruited me, and I'd been there, or had been there for 25 years at Swarthmore, and I don't think they'd ever made the playoffs, and under his tenure, and so I show up on campus, and the program is not very good, pretty disorganized, undisciplined. Practices, we're not getting much done, and we're getting smacked in these games, and so the season, Coach Wimberly ends up leaving mid-season. The assistants take over, and they're just, I don't know. We're kind of the walking wounded, getting to the finish line. I have 3 ankle injuries and don't really play at all. I think I played in, couldn't have been more than 10 games, but never got really any major minutes or any momentum. And so we go in this coaching search. On this coaching search that summer, or I guess the spring into the summer, and end up getting Landry on campus. And he was coming from Davidson, where he had been one of the top assistants, and I actually grew up in Davidson, as you mentioned, and had watched him as a player.
Yeah, he was a great player, right?
Right. Yeah, really, really talented, and gotten to know him a little bit. I always joke with him. There was this one time when I was going to shoot around in Davidson's gym when I was younger, and the head coach, who I had known for a long time, had mentioned that I could use the gun once I'd gotten to high school, which is the automatic rebounding machine. And Landry walks into the gym, and I'm like fiddling with the gun, trying to figure it out. And he's like, "Do you know how to use that?" And I'm like, "No, not really." And he's like, "Well, maybe today's not the day that you start using it." And so I love repeating that story, and just to indicate there was nothing given in that relationship, just even though we had a little bit of a history. And so Landry, just far and away the best candidate out of the field, and came in and brought the same discipline that I think the Davidson program, that he had experienced in the Davidson program as a player, and then had helped instill as a coach. And it was just night and day.
I was looking this up. Now your final year, 14-15, Swarthmore goes 11-14. Now, since then, Karl, and we need to talk about this. I mean, since you left the roster, here's the win totals: 22, 23, 25, 29, 28, 22. So, I mean, what happened there? Well, Karl leaves, and all of a sudden they become one of the best programs in the country.
That's right. Addition by subtraction.
Coincidence? How does this work, Karl? Talk to me about this.
Yeah, no, I remember Zach Yonda, who was one of the freshmen when I was a senior, and still a great friend to this day. He was quoted in one of the student newspapers as saying, we didn't lose much this year, and so we're looking to really make a big run. And Landry like screenshotted it or cut it out and sent it to me, and it was just, it was hilarious.
And in fairness to Karl, folks, so you were a starter, so you started, right?
I did for 3 years. Yeah.
You started for 3 years, so you played in all 25 games. You started, you averaged 10 points, 4 rebounds, 2 assists. So really solid player, starter. And so, for your guy to say that they didn't lose anything, I mean, that's pretty tough, man. That's pretty tough to have in the school newspaper.
No, they were, I mean, it was just it was a changing of the guards. And I kind of knew it. I knew what my role was, and chipped in. I pretty much did the same thing every year, which is around 9 or 10 points a game, and play some good defense. But the guys and the caliber of player that Landry was able to recruit, I think by leveraging the academic reputation and selling kids on his vision for what the program would be, and pretty clearly what it has become, we're just, I recognized that they were just so much better than I was. And I made it my goal with Zach Yonda, and the other members of that freshman class to just try to mentor them and instill in them, what I thought was the level of discipline and the, the values that we would uphold as a program. And that's what I see as my legacy and my impact on the program. And I never got those wins, but I got to see, like you alluded to earlier, Swarthmore playing in the national championship, which coming in as a freshman, just would have never thought was possible.
Completely unheard of. And look, every story of a program that turns around has the story of the Karl Barkleys and your other teammates, the guys that made a commitment knowing that, I mean, you knew your senior year that you guys weren't going to go to the Final Four. You knew that there was a building process in place and a certain ceiling that you could get to, but you helped lay a foundation for a group then that helped lay a foundation for a group. And so that's pretty big stuff. The other thing too, again, kind of this theme of kind of being a worker and doing things the right way. I was looking at the roster notes. You were one of 3 Division III student athletes that season to be named an All-State to the All-State Good Works team. Mm-hmm. You were a Centennial Conference All Sportsmanship team. So there's some themes developing here in terms of you were widely recognized to get those type of awards as someone who played the game the right way, earned everything you got. I mean, there's definitely some themes there, don't you think?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like the awards were fun. The All-State one kind of came. I didn't not expecting that. I didn't even know I was up for it. I think Landry nominated me without telling me, and I got a notice either by email or he let me know senior year. So that was really fun. I got to bring my dad to the D1 Final Four, and
that's cool.
Just really really great experience. But no, I mean, I feel like the mission and the kind of, like I mentioned with the freshmen, the mentorship was always the focus, and the goal was to leave the program better than I found it, and which wasn't going to be that hard, because when I got there it was kind of in disarray. And so yeah, I think the awards are nice, but my biggest reward and payoff has been, as we just talked about, watching the program succeed and watching them keep like, I guess, replicating that type of behavior that I tried to instill. And they are super active in the Philadelphia community, in the town, the borough of Swarthmore, serving the community and giving back. And I think it shows. Fans come and pack the gym out now, which is not what we had when I was a player. And
right.
the borough of Swarthmore named the day Swarthmore Basketball Day, just to honor the team and what they've done. And so again, those are the biggest payoffs to me. And so the individual awards and accolades are nice, but it's seeing those same behaviors repeated and that they've become a core part of what the program is now.
And I think you played with Shane Leffler, who's now an assistant coach there. So you've got a tie there. He's
and freshly married a couple weeks ago.
Shane Leffler, freshly married, folks. On the QCast, we're breaking that news a little late here, so apologies to Shane and his new bride.
Shane.
Shane's brother is the head coach at Johns Hopkins, right? A Centennial Conference rival of Swarthmore. So that's Josh Leffler.
And a Swarthmore graduate.
And a Swarthmore, which you're very quick to throw out there. Absolutely, which I would do the same. I mean, anytime I can remind people that Olivia Lett is a Titan, Steve Schwer is a Titan, like, I'm going to do that. Final question on Swarthmore, and then we'll get into some D3 direct stuff and maybe some current D3 stuff. But
great.
What was it like, the Final Four in 2018-19, watching, your program that you say you won 3 games your freshman year, you said, and here they are in Fort Wayne. Well, must have been pretty incredible.
It was awesome. Yeah, it was for so many different reasons. It was a huge gathering of not only basketball players, but also Swarthmore friends and other athletes who from all different class years who came to support the team, and came all the way to this little town, Fort Wayne in Indiana, and super far from the East Coast. And I think Zach Yonda at the time was playing in Ireland. I was actually living in China and working on a basketball project over there, and had a friend from Swarthmore, Jason Peo, who texted me and was like, I will go to the Final Four if you do. And he was the track and field captain. He was not a basketball player, but Jason dropped that text to me, and made it happen to be back. I wouldn't have missed it for the world. And
man, I'm not going to brag next time I like fly to St. Louis to go to the Wesleyan WashU game. That's not such a big deal when you went to a game from China, right?
Yeah, it was a 12-hour flight from Chengdu to San Francisco, and then I think from San Francisco I flew to Chicago, and we rented a minivan and picked up like 7 guys and shuttled down there. So it was.
But isn't that like, I'll bet you that shuttle, that whole travel process, once you got with your crew, like you guys will never stop talking about things that happened that weekend, correct?
Ever. Yeah. Even at Shane's wedding recently, I mean, we're still retelling these these stories, which I'm not gonna drop on the QCast here just to stay face. But it was a pretty incredible weekend. Obviously, would have loved for SWAT to win and to have that national title, but I think the experience and getting to hang out with the guys and then also meeting some of the younger guys, some guys who are still on the team, like George Visconti was a freshman at the time, and guys like Lee Martin, who have now since graduated, and just like seeing again the character of these players, and getting to see who they were off the court was just as fun.
I always tell people, like younger kids that are in school currently, like if your team goes somewhere in the tournament, like for a weekend, whether it's the first round, the second, or the championship round, just go. That you will never regret the experiences of one of those weekends where you and your buddies are holed up in some hotel in wherever, Crawfordsville, Indiana, having a great time. It's just you got to go. And like you said, you're at a guy's wedding years later, and those are the things you're remembering.
Yeah.
Current season, and then we'll get into. I want to get into like D3 Direct and kind of some of the things you're doing there, because it's really, really cool. When I met you this year was in New York. I met you in the Max Stern Athletics Center at Yeshiva. Right. And I remember you dropped me a note before, hey, I'm going to be at the game. I'll meet you out there. I was like, great. I didn't understand how far you were traveling to come to this basketball game. I met you at Yeshiva's practice at 6 a.m, the day before the Illinois Wesleyan Yeshiva game. Yep. And I'm thinking, hey, where'd you come from? Thinking you're going to say like, the Upper West Side or like Jersey, and you're like San Francisco. So at that point, I know this is the real deal. This cat got on a plane, from San Francisco to New York. Your thoughts, Karl, on that the Illinois Wesleyan Yeshiva weekend. I can't even remember. Was it a weekend? I don't even know what day.
It was December. I think it was December 18th and 19th were the back-to-back days, the practice and the game.
The 29th. The 29th.
20. Oh, you're right. Right before
29th. Right. So
right before New Year's.
What was your thoughts on all of that stuff? It was pretty crazy.
Yeah, it was crazy. And I would say you made it happen. I mean, you made it easy for me to just fly in. And I remember messaging you and you were like, yeah, I'm going to go to practice. And I was just like, do you mind if I come? That sounds great.
You're like, can I come? I'm like, hey, it's not my practice. You got to talk to Coach Steinmetz. I can't approve this.
Who was so unbelievably hospitable the whole weekend. And great to meet him. Great to meet Coach Rose and all the guys on both squads. But
you and I are the only two people in America that attended the Yeshiva practice and the Illinois Wesleyan practice the same morning, right? Back to back. Right. Now,
and Coach Rose just so welcoming, and just had to step out for 15 minutes while they did some game planning, but otherwise was brought in like a friend of the program.
I was going to call that out. Is Coach Steinmetz let you stay in practice the whole time?
Right.
And Coach Rose, who had just met you, he very politely asked you for 15 minutes to leave the gym while they put in their yeshiva prep, because he doesn't know if this guy's a spy or whatever.
Right.
And then you got to come back in, so it was all good, right?
Exactly. No harm, no foul, and I got to see the vast majority of both, which was just great to be back in a college practice and seeing what two top programs in the country
Had you ever heard a
Roll it
louder
out.
gym than the Max Stern, that like around tip off, that have you ever heard I know you've seen more people in a gym because it's a little place, but I'm telling you, that was loud. Like talk to me about the game atmosphere there for the Maccabees.
Yeah, I mean, just in terms of a spectacle, I don't feel like I've ever seen a Division III game. Obviously, I was personally very excited for Swarthmore in the Final Four, and we had a lot of people, but it's just a totally different setting and kind of tension before and a buildup that I walk in and I think you and I had talked about definitely wanting to show up early and getting in and getting situated and before the crowd set in. So I think I got up there. I took the subway up. My brother lives in Manhattan, and staying with him, and took the subway up. And I want to say I got there 2 hours plus before the game, and there was already a line well out the door and up the block,
Right.
Up in Washington Heights. And yeah, it was just something else to see that much excitement and the community really turning out for a team. And so I haven't ever experienced anything like that, but hopefully it becomes more of the norm at the Division III level, and maybe we'll see that level of turnout in Bloomington for the rematch.
I think there's going to be some very interested Yeshiva fans that find their way to the Shirk Center. So I'm looking forward. As far as the game goes, obviously my guys, kind of everything went right for him in that game. What was your takeaway on the X's and O's of the game? You were right there up close. What kind of
arguably too close.
Yeah, you were in play, really.
I was shocked the fire marshals let Ryan Scott and I sit where we did at the table, but great view. And I would say in terms of my reaction to the game, I feel like definitely impressed with Wesleyan's execution early and them really taking it to Yeshiva from a physicality standpoint. There were no easy baskets. Obviously Terrell was a pretty incredible scorer all of last year in D3, if arguably one of the best, if not the best. And
absolutely.
I just feel like he didn't have a clean look until maybe I want to say until Pete Lambesis went out and got subbed out, and then that was like Ryan's first good look. But yeah, every catch was hard. They were pushing him out further than he wanted to be pushed out, and Yeshiva missed some early threes. Wesleyan hit a lot of early threes, and Laritz was all over the boards. And as you've documented on Twitter, and Yeshiva, much to the chagrin of Yeshiva fans everywhere, Yeshiva did not do a great job boxing out. And so it kind of became almost a little too physical for the Max.
And how about the post game? You were there at Burgers and Grill. You were there in the gym afterwards. Wasn't the whole post game thing was? I've talked about this on some other episodes with other guests, but that was pretty unique to me. To the people that were coming together, but between the fans and the players, and then the people at Burgers and Grill. That was probably one of the cooler things I've ever experienced in following Division III, is what happened after the horn sounded that night. What were your thoughts on all of that stuff?
Yeah. I mean, again, I think kind of it just all had a different feel to it, and in some ways it felt like an exhibition. Like this was just a bringing together of two groups, and obviously there was a lot of competition, a lot on the line, but it felt like it was something bigger than basketball or bigger than just the game itself. And a huge shout out. Like I already mentioned, Coach Steinmetz and how gracious and welcoming he was, and we got breakfast with him after that practice. And but then even just meeting Ryan and his parents and
first class,
his brother, just top to bottom, met Ofek and all these guys who were just Gabe, who are coming in to Burgers and Grill and just chatting us up. Yeah, I did make the mistake of wearing a green shirt that night, just not really thinking, limited options in the suitcase traveling cross country, and it was lighter, but I definitely got a lot of green. it was a shade of green, and immediately kind of regretted that as I walk into Burgers and Grill, and everyone's decked out in Yeshiva gear, and I'm like, I am going to be thought of as a Wesleyan fan here. But even with all that, they were, could not have been more welcoming, and great food
It
too.
was just a fun night. And then the second game I was at with you this season was Fort Wayne. So we were at the Final Four together, and that was really a fun weekend. What were your thoughts on the way the Final Four played out, with, of course, Randolph-Macon winning the national championship? What was your experience like this year at Fort Wayne?
Yeah, well, at Fort Wayne, I have since started referring to it as the sequel to Ryan Whitnable's private Final Four in Marietta, Ohio, back in November,
right,
where he had Marietta, three of the four Final Four teams, Wabash and Randolph-Macon, all in the.
And then he also had Emory there. Yeah, I mean,
right, yeah, Emory.
Talk about a tournament, the Great Lakes Invitational. I mean, that's pretty darn good, right?
Yeah, let's go ahead and plug that. That's in Crawfordsville, Indiana, at Wabash this year.
Yeah.
I'll definitely be back. Talk first class organization, and the teams are going to be great as well again. So.
And a spoiler alert, I might be attending a Great Lakes Invitational in the very near future. So we're going to hold on that, but let's just but we'll give a shout out to Ryan to say that his tournament is fantastic. So you had a lot of teams that were a little bit familiar with each other there. Randolph-Macon, they looked unbeatable in those two games. And what was your take on what you saw from RMC?
Yeah, I think, contrasting from seeing them at the start of the year to the end, they, in comparison to Wabash and in comparison to Marietta, I think they were just leaps and bounds of where they were at the start. And I think Macon played Emory and played Marietta in two pretty close games, and but gosh, they were a buzzsaw.
Fantastic.
And no pun intended.
Yeah, no, that's a good call. No pun intended. They were a buzzsaw, and
they were.
I just don't know, pick any other team playing at their best. If anyone could have challenged them that weekend, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
They were dominant in every phase of the game. They had a swagger. Their offense was just incredibly efficient, great defense. How about the experience itself at War Memorial Coliseum, the Fort Wayne community? Do you think that's a good setup for the Division III Final Four? It was in Salem for a long time. Now it's in Fort Wayne. People are evaluating if that's the long-term home. What are your thoughts on that as the home?
Yeah, I having gone to Fort Wayne now twice, I think they do a great job. I think, Dylan Bender, I think, was the media coordinator. And
he was great.
He was terrific, and just, made you, me, and Ryan, who, just do this for fun, and made us feel like pros. And again, first class operation all weekend. And I feel like going forward, I never got to see what the Salem setup was like, but I think Fort Wayne's been great, and would be interested to see, I guess from a regional perspective, I guess it kind of makes sense. You do have a concentration of teams up in that area, and I guess it's a little easier for.
Yeah, I think so. I think geographically, I love it. It's just so central to the Division III footprint. Yeah. I think the facility is really nice. I think it's just much newer, and you have more modern amenities than you did at the Salem Civic Center. The people are great in Fort Wayne that are kind of in charge. And so I'm a big fan. I hope it stays there a while. But look, if someone wants to bid against it and it ends up somewhere great, we'll roll in there too and have a great time.
Agreed.
Let's talk D3 Direct. So I was trying to remember when you started that account on Twitter. Do you remember when it was that you?
I do.
Yeah. When was it?
It was, so I guess the pandemic officially got going in the US in March of 2020. We were all sent home from work. And I think around April or May is when I started tweeting. I had done some writing. My roommates were out, and then they had gone to Florida. for a supposed 2-week trip that ended up being 10 months. And so I had the apartment to myself for a while, and did a lot of thinking just about like, you know, things I could do to fill my time, and thinking back to my college experience, and started just writing a lot of notes about, you know, what I had tried, and started coming up with some things that could be helpful for recruits who, you know, weren't going to be able to have the traditional recruiting experience given the pandemic situation. And I talked to my brother, and he was like, you should just tweet for 30 days in a row and put one piece of actionable advice out every single day and see what happens. And so started D3 Direct just like that. Created a little logo online, and it was nothing official, but eventually the account started picking up some traction, and people liked it.
And you know, you've got, I think it's over 7,000 followers, which I don't know what percent of Twitter users have over 7,000 followers, but I would guess that puts somebody in like the upper 1% of Twitter followers. That's a huge number. Your kind of tagline on your profile, it says empowering student athletes from recruit to the real world. And that's very well said, because a lot of what you do, you'll talk about like how to navigate the financial aid process. And then other times you'll be talking about like internships. So I'm thinking of the kids that are about to graduate. What is it, if you had to describe it here, what is it you're trying to accomplish with the D3 Direct work? You're obviously hitting kids on the front end, the back end. What do you want to do with all that, Karl?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, we talked about earlier a little bit, like my own learned experience and trying to be the person that I kind of wish I had had in my own recruiting process, my own job search, who was an older sibling of sorts who could just say, you know, here's how I did it, right? This is where I made a mistake, or this is something that I thought mattered, and definitely doesn't matter as much as you think it does when you're 20 or 21 years old. I think there's also something, Bob, to be said about trying to just highlight what the Division III level is and how incredible of an opportunity it can be, in terms of not only the athletic and academic experience that you get to experience while you're in college, but also what it can set you up for in life. And so I'm trying to be a cheerleader for the level, and then, you know, highlighting interesting stories, whether it's the coaches at the level or the student athletes and things they're doing in their community, or, you know, going to play abroad, or maybe just getting a great job after school, and
well, that's the great thing,
is a good career.
Building up the level is huge. And you know, the late at D3 guy who, you know, we all missed terribly, who passed away about a week before the Illinois Wesleyan Yeshiva game. It was in December he passed away. But you know, his big thing, Mike's big thing was Division III needs as many voices as possible.
Absolutely.
Because there's a lot of people that will try to tell you that Division III is a certain thing. Oh, it's the lowest level. Or Division III has a whole bunch to sell. And I think what social media has allowed people to do, people like you, is to build up that brand, you know, to tell the story of Division III. Division I accounts might have more followers than you do, but you're able to reach a very targeted audience that you can dispel myths, you can sell the great things. And clearly that's one of the things, Karl, that you feel like is one of your roles, is you're building you're helping the Division III brand. Is that fair to say? Yeah,
absolutely. And trying to just shout out people that have come from D3 and are now doing awesome stuff in the world. And I feel like it has been, the response from the D3 community has been incredible. Response from people, former Division III athletes, who are, you know, no longer, I guess, officially affiliated with the level. People like Paul Biancardi, who, you know, just, I don't remember how it got started, but he reached out to me and was like, hey, I'd love to do something. And so I did an interview with him, and then he offered again, like we got on a space, and Twitter
awesome.
space. And, he's this syndicated ESPN recruiting director and willing to help out just because of how much Division III meant to him
Right.
while he was a player. And so, yeah, then we're able to give that perspective and share his insights about recruiting with student athletes live and be able to answer their questions. And so
Yeah.
things like that are awesome.
In addition to your Twitter account, I mean, you've got on YouTube, you have student athlete sessions, which is incredibly cool. What are, just so I don't miss anything, what are all the different ways that people can consume your content? So I talked about Twitter, YouTube. Where else should people be looking for you?
Yeah, I think YouTube, the student athlete sessions I started because, my perspective is only one of many out there. I wanted to try to capture other people's stories, how other people handled admissions, financial aid, after graduation pursuits, and then log it in a library where people could access it for free, so that no one's limited by their family income in terms of how they can access this information. And so that's one thing, YouTube. And then Substack is another way. Substack is just, Twitter's very short, very fleeting, and you tweet something and
Right.
2 weeks later no one remembers that you tweeted it. And I feel like Substack is a better way for me to be able to write some longer pieces and give people a little more information about thornier topics. Financial aid would be one. If I had $1 for every time someone asked me if there are scholarships at the Division III level, I could probably start my own scholarship fund for the Division III level. But been able to chip away at some of those things on Substack. And then Instagram is up there. I don't update it a ton, but when there's something cool to post or video, I'll throw it up on Instagram as well.
If by the way, if you want to tweet something that people will not forget in 2 weeks, just tweet something about Yeshiva and Pool C.
There you go.
And people will never forget. I'm trying to get myself out of that world, and I'm in it, man. I'm in deep into that thing. Tell me, Karl, I'd like to capture your top, kind of as we start to wind down, your top tips for recruits. So let's talk about, let's talk about the kids who are juniors in high school that are about to enter the summer going into their senior year. This is the group now that is on the radar. This is the group that coaches are starting to evaluate and look at. We're going to have visits starting soon. What are the things, are there 2 or 3 or 4 things that you say are musts for kids that are looking to get recruited at the Division III level?
Yeah, I mean, we already discussed academics, but so I think that should just be a given. If we're talking about kids that are in that junior year, I think the key is to come up with your own list. Sit down, whether it's you and your parents, whether it's you and a coach, someone you trust, and come up with a list of 8 to 12 schools, let's say, that you actually want to attend. Not for basketball or whatever your sport is, but that you like the academics, you like maybe a program they have, you like where the campus is, something that gets you fired up about going to that school, for that school, and then lead your recruiting process from that foundation. I think far too often kids and families these days get pulled into the myth that they can find exposure events or go to some big AAU tournament or pay a lot of money to be on the right AAU team and get coaches' eyeballs on them, and that is going to equal scholarships or offers to play. And that does not happen, except for a tiny minority of students. Maybe 1% of the entire recruiting population are going to go to some event with their AAU team, and a coach is going to walk over and say, "Hey, I'd love to offer you. You played really well."
And
so
to your make a list tip, I mean, a lot of times I think what happens is kids are just so interested in playing that they end up at a school because the school wants them for basketball, but that student athlete without basketball would never end up at that school. Like, it's not a fit with what they want to do for the rest of their life. And that ends up as kind of a weird dynamic. So what you're saying is build your list and then play within that list. Like let your recruiting play out within, say, a list of 10 or 12, right?
Yeah. And if someone else, if another coach comes in and initiates contact, then that's great, right? That's gravy. But focus on that list of where you actually want to be, because you never know what is going to happen in your athletic career. You never know. I got on campus, Bob, and within 2 weeks had sprained my ankle. I'd never had a bad injury. I never had an injury really in high school. And I had this pretty severe high ankle sprain, was out for 6 weeks and just rehabbing and having to sit there and watch preseason workouts. And, there were a lot of questions at that time about whether or not I was at the right place and do I want to be here? And I think, because of the way a lot of my teammates responded and supported me, and friends responded and supported me, and kind of the classes I was in at the time, like the answer was a resounding yes. And because of the work I had done prior to figure out that Swarthmore was a place I really wanted to go, despite this terrible start from a basketball standpoint, the school side of it really worked out, and I wanted to stay. Now I've interviewed a number of people who have started out at Division I schools, and whether it was playing time or an injury or something that came up, decided to transfer. And the key takeaway that a lot of them share is that they just wish they would have known that a D3 was an option, or they wish they had thought about things other than basketball initially. And so again, I'm trying to take those insights that other people have had and remind current student athletes of that when they're getting carried away and thinking, I just want an opportunity to play basketball. It's like, no, sit down and think about the school as the foundation.
Where do you stand on the highlight reel? This seems to be just a reality today, that everyone's got the 3-minute highlight reel of every basket that they've ever made their senior year. And obviously everyone's shooting 1,000% in these reels. Are these a necessary evil nowadays? Do you recommend them? Do you have an opinion on thhave things?
Yeah, I mean, I personally didn't have film, and maybe I'm aging myself, but it might have just been a different era. But I feel like there's still a way that you could get by with very limited film, and the overemphasis on these, having like a perfectly polished tape, again, like you're saying, with every made basket, and you executing great dribbling moves and finishes at the basket. And I'm not sure it's necessary. Through a ton of different conversations on Twitter, I feel like my takeaway has been try to do something different. Like, coaches are getting thousands of emails every season from recruits who all kind of try for that same thing, try to make shots, be a scorer. Like, if you have videos of you taking a charge or you diving on the floor and saving a loose ball and starting a transition for your team, then like have a whole highlight tape where the first minute is just that stuff. Or like you're getting a steal, or you're boxing out and you're getting a great rebound and you throw a good pass. And again, like, just do something that's different. And I think try to break the mold, because again, coaches get inundated with this stuff, and the more you can separate yourself, the better, and the more likely
and I would say, just from the coaches that I've talked to on this topic, is there's value in the tape. A very successful D3 head coach said it this way to me: I like the highlight reels that show me the type of player that the recruit is. Meaning, like, take Matt Larratt's. I remember watching film of Matt Larratt's when he was a senior in high school, and you could clearly see he was a back to the basket skilled post guy. I remember thinking, there aren't many of those guys out there. Like, this kid can score with his right, his left. He's a great rebounder.
Yeah.
I think enough to show what type of player you are. But these tapes where a kid makes, 23s, and then in real life his 3-point field goal percentage is 21%, you're not going to fool anybody, because they're going to go watch you play.
Absolutely.
And, if you go 2 of 10 from 3, and you're taking terrible shots. So people are going to come watch you play, and you don't want to waste your own time or their time. I think by trying to, I've seen some of these tapes where it's a collection of a kid dunking like crazy. And then you go watch the kid in real life and he barely gets the ball. And sometimes
Right.
they accidentally, the ball trickles to him and he dunks it or something. But I think we're on the same page. And I like what you said about taking a charge or hustle play. A lot of coaches at the most successful programs are looking for kids that have a motor. And so
Yeah.
if there's things on a tape that show you playing with a motor, I think that's more valuable than, showing 33s probably.
Yeah.
Any other, because then I want to ask you the reverse, which is, what are some like things you're seeing that recruits shouldn't do? Is there another tip though, before we get to that? Any other like keys to the recruiting process?
Yeah, I would say kind of on the same line about film and stuff. In your emails to coaches, I think make an effort to, instead of telling them, like, I guess let's use the example of Matt Laritz, and instead of Matt emailing and saying, I'm a great back to the basket scorer, like find those clips, think about what you want the message to be to coaches, and then find ways to show them that instead of just telling them.
Right.
And yeah, I mean, I think on the point of like dunking, I think dunking can be great, right? Like a fast break dunk doesn't tell me much if I'm evaluating a player, but like if a guy drop steps and is in traffic and finishes high at the rim,
yeah,
like that goes to the point of like the motor that a guy has, right? And how aggressive they're going to be finishing at the basket when they're in traffic. Or yeah, I think and back to the message of show me, don't tell me. Like, don't tell me you have a high motor. Find those plays in your body of work that illustrate that. So
completely agree. How about the flip side? Are there things you're seeing recruits do that make you cringe and that you would like to share? Hey, don't do that. Anything like that jump to mind?
I mean, I think the mass DMing on Twitter is not a great look. I mean, I could probably count hundreds in my message requests of just, hey coach, check out my film. And I don't respond to that. I'm not a talent evaluator.
Well, I get those. I get those too. And what I always think is, it would take someone 1 second to realize I'm not a coach. I'm just some random dude on Twitter. Like I'm not a coach. So how are people just finding any account they can and firing their stuff out? That I think there's some tip in there. I think don't do that, but more importantly, I mean, make sure you know who you're communicating with, right? Just don't randomly throw stuff out to people you have no idea who they are.
Yeah, and it just hammers home the point of what is your foundation, and what are those 10 to 12 schools that you actually care about, and don't just blast it out to anyone hoping something sticks. Think hard about and be deliberate about where you're seeing that information. I think the other thing too, Bob, is like, I put it in the bio, here to help, ask away. Like, my goal with D3 Direct is not to make a ton of money, not to become Twitter famous. It is to help kids with actionable advice and insights. But I am not going to help you if you come to me and just, don't like come to me with a little bit of previous thinking, right? Like,
right.
Come to me with a good question. Come to me with having done a little research about a school, or with something specific. Like maybe you want me to, if you're a current student athlete, we get a lot of requests to like review resumes, and I'll offer that periodically, just to say, first 3 people to DM or respond to this post, right, I'll review your resume or cover letter. And it is amazing how many people will, I'll send some edits to them and they'll just never follow up. And it's like, that doesn't make me want to help you anymore.
Yeah.
It's like, you gotta give a little to get the assistance. And yeah.
Another thing too that I've noticed, and you've probably seen this too, is really you need to manage your online brand. I mean, so if you're a junior or senior in high school now, and back 3-4 years ago, you were tweeting or you were putting a bunch of stuff on Instagram that's just not real smart, people are going to find that. So when you're out there, people are going to go back and read tweets or look at your Instagram posts, and you better make sure that your social media brand is what you want it to be, because I've seen situations where coaches have stopped recruiting a kid because of something that they have uncovered on social media. No school wants to run into like problems or like, oh my God, we didn't know that this kid was part of this or saying this, or do you see any of that where someone's like online stuff from the past is hurt them?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And I think that's been a big focus of like, if you've caught any of the Twitter spaces that Chadwick Hickson or Coach Payne have been doing over the past, 10 to 12 months, a lot of the focus is how to set up your profile
Right.
and the acknowledgement that it can be, as you're mentioning, a real negative in your recruiting process, or it can be something that's a real positive and consolidates a bunch of information, and you have film accessible for coaches, and all necessary information is there, and maybe your schedule for recruiting events is up, and it can be extremely positive. But yeah, it can also just be this negative if you have some terrible tweets down in your timeline, and
Right.
Or maybe you follow some bad accounts, or
watch who you follow. Right. So,
Right.
If people are on there and they go to like, who do you follow? And you follow a bunch of idiots. I mean, that's not a good thing either. So make sure that your social media presence is what you want it to be. As we close, Karl, this has been awesome finally doing this officially on the QCast. Some of the things we've talked about kind of in person and a little more informally. What are some of your final thoughts? You've got Division III fans tuning in here, and we'll share this around, and hopefully a lot of people get a chance to listen to your feedback. What would you leave folks with from a Division III standpoint, from a D3 direct standpoint?
I mean, I feel like in reflection on this past year, just incredible that we had a full year uninterrupted of Division III athletics, from football, volleyball in the fall, all the way to track and field and baseball and softball in the spring. Like, it has just been so nice to have that full slate back. And so I would personally like to give a shout out to the coaches, to the administrators, athletic trainers, the people who are on the ground making those games happen. I remember seeing all the nightmares of scheduling that D3 assistants had to deal with, at least during the basketball season.
Sports information directors, when all that stuff was stacked up, like tons of sports happening at the same time, trying to get games in, and
COVID flare-ups and
crazy on the SIDs. Absolutely. Yeah.
So I would just say, shout out to those people who you and I are big fans of the level and love to appreciate it, but it's easy to forget how much effort and coordination goes into making those games happen. So just say some appreciation for those people. In terms of the level and D3 direct, I think to any recruits who are out there, start early, be thinking hard about why you want to do it. The comparison game has never been stronger, and you're exposed to people on Instagram, people on Twitter, and I'm assuming TikTok. I'm not on it, but sharing where they're going to school and all these other accolades and information, and everyone wants to be congratulated for what they've accomplished, and it is all out there for you to view and compare yourself against. And I think the more you can remove yourself from that and really focus in on why you actually want to play a college sport, or go to college in the first place, is really important, and will ultimately help you find a place that you want to go to. So I think, trying not to compare. It's obviously very difficult. I'm still impacted by it, out of school, and see what other people are doing in their jobs and in their lives. And so I think try to take that moment again with people you trust, whether it's your parents or coaches, and think about why you want it.
Very well said. And, I'll just leave you with Karl. What you're doing is huge for Division III, to have someone filling the roles that you are, and the kind of the helping around navigating all of this stuff that there's no playbook for, from recruiting to some of the things during the college experience to heading out to the real world. There aren't a lot of voices in the Division III community doing a lot of that. So it's awesome. It's been great to meet you this year. I know that we'll see each other somewhere along the way next year. I invite you to come to the Shirk Center for IW Yeshiva Part 2.
What's the date on that one?
November 12th, 8 p.m. Central Time. So if you've ever wanted to go to Bloomington, Illinois, it's a hotbed of excitement.
It has been on my list.
It'll be a fun one. So if it's not there, I know there'll be some other gym that I'll see you in. Folks, that is Karl Barkley. He runs at D3 Direct on Twitter and has several other ways you can engage with him. He's good old number 35 from the Swarthmore men's basketball team. He was part of the turnaround of that program into a powerhouse. Karl, this has been awesome, man. Look forward to seeing you and appreciate your time, my friend.
Yeah, Bob, thanks for having me on. And it's been great getting to know you, and looking forward to seeing you again in the future very, very soon.
Thank you. And folks, that's QCast Season 2, Episode 19. Please share this if you know people who will find it interesting. And we'll wish everyone a great Memorial Day weekend. Thanks, guys.